Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. It's been quite a while, and I've taken kind of a break from YouTube. I guess you could call it a break, considering I barely even started. But I'm back, and I have some new exciting content that I am looking forward to putting out. Obviously, with the situation with the global pandemic in the last few months, a lot of films that I was really excited for have been delayed, which really sucks because there was so much I was looking forward to this year, and unfortunately it looks like it's all being moved pretty much to 2021. So I even read the entire Dune saga, like the entire saga, in preparation for the movie to release in December. Unfortunately, it has been postponed to October of next year, which is such a bummer. So I have been occupying my time these last few months with books. I have been reading like crazy. It's kind of been like almost an obsession of mine. I've decided that on this channel I'd like to kind of expand my platform and talk about different mediums of storytelling, be it video games, be it books, be it film. And I just kind of, I want this to be something that I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about all forms of storytelling, so that's what I'm going to cover. So in honor of the spooky season that has just arrived, I have been reading horror books like mad. I've been literally any book that people will recommend, I've picked it up, I've read it, and I have some that I've liked, and I've had some that I didn't like so much, and today I want to talk about that. Just a little disclaimer, I have not read and will not mention any Stephen King novels, just because we all know that he has some fantastic books. I have read many of his fantastic books, and it's not really much of a surprise, so there is no Stephen King on this list. So I figure I will start off by talking about my favorite books that I have read. Probably the book that I have enjoyed the most out of all of the slew of horror books that I have read the past month or so has been The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a fantastic, fantastic horror novel. I loved it so much. It's very gritty, it's very gross, it's very disturbing. So The Troop follows a group of Boy Scouts up in the Canadian wilderness. They go to this island with their scout leader, and they are camping for the weekend, and they come across, by means I won't discuss, they come across this parasitic worm that becomes this like infection, and suddenly these boys are having to survive and try not to get infected with these disgusting worms. That's the best way I can describe it. That's not necessarily a spoiler because it says on the back pretty much what the antagonist of the story is. But I really loved this book. I loved that really gross, just uneasy feeling it gave me while I was reading it. There are some kind of Lord of the Flies elements in this book, with the young boys kind of turning on each other and this whole hierarchy of who's going to be in charge and whatnot. And I just loved every minute of it. I thought this book was fantastic. And I will say, however, if you are the faint of heart and cannot take animal cruelty scenes, there are quite a few in this book, and some that go into very graphic, grotesque detail, and it's very difficult to read. Myself as an animal lover, I had a hard time with some of the scenes, but yeah, if that doesn't bother you, then I think you'll really love this book, but if it does, I would probably steer clear of it because it's pretty bad. The next book I want to talk about is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This is a very thought-provoking, fantastic, creepy horror novel, and I loved it. I loved it to death. So the story is about a young girl whose older sister develops like mental health issues, like severe behavioral issues, and the family after a certain point starts to wonder if maybe she is actually possessed by a demon, and so they hire this reality TV show crew to come, and they film what happens to this girl and this family, and it's all very interesting and exciting. When I heard about the reality TV show element, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to like it, but I actually did. I thought it was a very interesting twist on a quote-unquote possession story, and I thought Paul Tremblay did a fantastic job with it. It still managed to be creepy, as much as it kind of made fun of itself. This book mentions The Exorcist countless times throughout it. This is just a really great book. I love the ambiguity of Paul Tremblay's writing. He likes to leave it up to the reader to kind of decide what is going on in the story, and I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed it in this book particularly. So I would highly recommend A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. The next book I want to talk about is The Ruins by Scott Smith. This is a great book. If you love survival horror, if you love body horror, this is a fantastic, fantastic read, and one that I think it's already a very popular book, and I know it was made into a mediocre film from what I've heard. It is about a group of tourists who are vacationing down in Mexico, and they end up going to look for this guy's lost brother at these ancient Mayan ruins. And once they get there, they discover that they cannot leave and are stuck with an evil entity, and I will leave it at that. If you don't know what it's about, it's pretty interesting. When I heard what the antagonist of this story was, I thought it was super lame, and I was like, how can that ever be creepy or unnerving? But it actually was. It surprised me, and I don't know, The Ruins is a great read. I enjoyed it a lot, and I would recommend it. The next book I want to talk about is Nosferatu by Joe Hill, who is, of course, the heir of Stephen King. I hesitate to put it in the horror genre just because there are creepy and disturbing moments in this book, but it is overall more of an adventure story, I would say, with some kind of supernatural, fantastical elements. This book follows Victoria McQueen, who, when the book starts, is a young girl, and she has this crazy ability to get on her bike and find things just kind of randomly. She gets on her bike and she crosses this kind of imaginary bridge, and it takes her to wherever she wants to go to find something. And it's a really special ability. One day she comes across a man called Charles Manx, who is evil, and evil in ways that I will not describe because that is for the reader to find out. But this was a great book. I flew through this book in 2 days. It's over 600 pages, but I just consumed it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. Victoria McQueen is so badass. She is amazing. I loved the antagonist. I thought Charles Manx was super creepy, and I understood his motivation. I understood his justification for what he's doing, why he's doing it. This was an overall just fantastic read. I would highly recommend it, especially around Christmas time, because there are Christmassy elements in this book that I think would be enjoyable for the holiday season, so I would highly recommend Nosferatu. And the last book that I read that I would probably classify as one of my favorites was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was a gem, but this is about a woman named Patricia who is a mother, and she's kind of a stay-at-home mom, and she is feeling rather unsatisfied with her life. I feel like that's fair to say. And so she starts attending this book club with her lady neighbors, and they all get together and they talk about these books. And then this guy comes to town who is very mysterious and who Patricia comes across, and his name is James Harris. And mysterious things start to happen in the neighborhood and in neighboring neighborhoods, and Patricia starts to wonder who James Harris actually is, and more specifically, what James Harris is. I enjoyed this book from the beginning to the end. I loved every minute of it. I loved the characters. If I had one complaint with this book, I would say that the ending is a little bit rushed. I think things kind of went a little too smoothly for the characters. If you've read it, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. And that is not a complaint I have with just this book. I think Grady Hendrix in general has a tendency to rush his endings, and I'll get to that in a moment. But other than that, this was a fantastic read. I would recommend this to almost anybody. It's quite gory, so if you're not into gore and whatnot, I would probably not recommend it for you, or for younger kids, but I don't know. This one was a real gem and one of my favorite vampire novels to date, I think, for sure. I'm gonna kind of go through some of the other books that I've read that I maybe didn't enjoy quite as much, but I didn't hate. I'm just gonna pick up where I left off with Grady Hendrix. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism. This book follows two best friends, Abby and Gretchen, who are in high school, and they go out one day with their friends and they experiment with LSD and with drugs, and they go out in the woods, and Gretchen kind of goes missing for a while, and once she comes back and the weeks following, she starts acting very strange, and eventually, as you can tell by the title, Abby starts to wonder if maybe she's possessed. I ordered this book and the Southern Book Club at the same time, and this was the one I was more interested in because I love possession stories, I love demons and devils and all of that, but I ended up actually enjoying the vampire book more than this one. I didn't dislike this book. I think it's really great. It's not exactly what I was expecting, but I think there's a lot to love about this book. First of all, it takes place in the 80s. As you can tell by the cover, which is very 80s, and there's loads of 80s references and pop culture references jammed into this book. Every chapter is the title of an 80s song, which is really cool. So if you're looking for kind of 80s nostalgia, I think you'll love this book. Overall, I would say this book is probably more geared to young adults or teenagers. It's definitely less gory, less graphic than the other book, and again, I thought the ending was kind of rushed, even though the very end of it was very heartwarming, and I loved it, and I almost teared up a little bit. Anyways, I do recommend this one. I did enjoy it. The next book I'm going to talk about is Baby Teeth, and this was an interesting book. I would probably classify it more as a thriller than a horror novel, but I did enjoy it. This book is about a couple who have a 7-year-old girl named Hannah who is mute and who loves her father so much she wishes she could just ride off into the sunset with her dad and live happily ever after, which is great, and I think most kids that age should feel that way about their parents. However, she hates her mother. She despises her mother so much so that she might even attempt to murder her. And that is where we have Baby Teeth. This book was entertaining, I will say. I think I was expecting a little bit more in terms of horror than I actually got with the book. I think the author could have gone a little bit further. I think I was expecting her to than she did in the book, but what she did do I really enjoyed. I found it really disturbing and creepy, and yeah, this is a great fun one if you're into creepy children. There is lots of creepy children in this book, and yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. And the last two books that I think are worth mentioning are the other two Nick Cutter novels that are very well known, which is The Deep and Little Heaven. I've read both of these as well. The Deep takes place mostly... That scared the crap out of me. The Deep takes place mostly underwater. It takes place in a world where a pandemic is ravaging humanity. A group of scientists think they have found the cure at the bottom of the ocean, down by the Marianas Trench, all the way down, like 8 miles deep, where the Challenger Deep is. And so that's where this one takes place. Super creepy, super claustrophobic, This one I would say is like John Carpenter's The Thing meets The Shining, and I actually really enjoyed the ending of this. Some people have some mixed thoughts on the end of this book, but I really enjoyed it. So there's The Deep. And then Little Heaven is about a group of mercenaries who go to this religious outpost camp place called Little Heaven. And this takes place in the American Southwest. And something really cool, actually, one portion of this book takes place in 1980 in the American Southwest, which is coincidentally the same year that the film No Country for Old Men took place. And I wondered about that, and I looked it up, and it turns out the author took inspiration from No Country for Old Men for the setting of this novel. I love the American Southwest. I love the West, and horses, and ranges, and cowboys, and all of that. I love it. So I was really loving the setting of this book. These mercenaries go to this religious camp to check on this kid, and once they get there, they find out that there is an evil lurking in the woods surrounding this camp, and that's basically the plot. I enjoyed this book a lot. I think I enjoyed it more than The Deep, but not as much as The Troop. This one can be kind of slow at times. This is definitely Nick Cutter's most character-driven novel, which I enjoyed because I love a good character story, and I really loved the characters in this. I thought they were really great, especially Ebenezer. He was my favorite. This book also has illustrations, which is different from anything else Nick Cutter's done before. I wish The Troop had illustrations. I think they would be really creepy. This book is very Lovecraftian. I've heard a lot of people say that. The antagonist in this book is very surreal and Lovecraftian, and I love that comparison because I think it's spot on. But yeah, Little Heaven is great. I would recommend it before I would recommend The Deep. I would recommend it before I would recommend The Deep, but not before I recommended The Troop. So those are all of the books that I feel are worth mentioning. They're not all the books that I have read, but those are the highlighted ones. I went on a really crazy, horror spiel, and I had a phase where I was just reading horror novels, and now I'm really excited to dive into other genres because I have loads of books waiting for me to read. I'm currently reading A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I'm about halfway through, and it is deep. I mean, really deep. And I mean that in the worst way, I think. I'm really enjoying it, but it is overwhelming, I would say. So yeah, I'll probably end up doing some book reviews on this channel from now on because I'm enjoying it so much. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I enjoy making them, and I think that's what matters most. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, feel free to click the like button and comment and subscribe and all of that good stuff, and I will see you the next time I upload. So, peace.